Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the delegate yield for a question?
Will the delegate
yield? The gentleman will yield.
The delegate will yield.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker. As a gentleman, let's say that somebody goes to the polls, and understanding that this would be a felony for them to commit and do this, but say somebody goes to my polling place and they swear that they are me, and they sign an affidavit that they are me, and they vote. And then I come in afterwards and I produce photo ID that it really is me, and according to the registrar, I have already voted, but now it's proof that I am there. Would I get to vote? And what would be the mechanism for ensuring that there's one person, one ballot?
Delegate Lindsay.
Madam Speaker, as I understand the gentleman's question, I think the larger issue is going to be access to the polls. As it relates to what your opportunity would be, my understanding is that you get to do a provisional ballot.
Madam Speaker, further question?
Delegate Head.
Yes. So,
will the delegate yield?
Will
the delegate yield?
The delegate is going to defer to Delegate Sickles, who gave me that part of the bill that you're now addressing.
Okay. Delegate Head, you have the floor. Delegate Sickles, will you yield?
I yield.
The delegate will yield. Delegate Head.
Well, I'm not sure, Madam Speaker, right now in the process where the question lies, but perhaps I could just direct the original question to Delegate Sickles, that if that were to happen, would I then be given a provisional ballot so that my vote is provisional and the one that was actually cast in my name is how would we sort that out to make sure that I actually got to legitimately cast a vote if somebody was using falsely an affidavit that says that they're mine? Lots of other questions I have around this, but I won't.
Delegate Sickles.
Madam Speaker, I think a provisional ballot is always something you do when you're not sure. You have until Friday at noon to come back and bring your proper ID and prove who you are. But the first thing I would do if I was a gentleman would call the police, because someone's committed a felony, and that's who you would call when something like that happens.
Delegate Head.
Madam Speaker, I was going to speak to the bill. I'm so baffled by that response. I don't even know what to say from there.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
Yes, Delegate Wilt.
Question, I guess, for Delegate Sickles.
I yield.
Will the delegate yield?
I yield.
Delegate
So
Wilt.
in that scenario, so someone lied and presented themselves as Delegate Head, who are you going to call the police on?
Delegate Sickles.
Madam Speaker, when a fraud, a felony has been committed, the police have things called investigators. They investigate a crime. So that's what they do. That's what we pay them to do. And they'll try to, I don't know what the first thing might be, to look at a handwriting sample, fingerprints, there you go. How about anything else? Witnesses, you know, are there witnesses to this? Maybe they ask the election judges there, what did the person look like? Do you remember this kind of thing? I don't know.
Thank you, Delegate Sickles.
Yep.
Delegate Wilt.
Madam Speaker, one further question.
Will the delegate yield?
I yield.
Delegate yields. Delegate Wilt, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd ask the gentleman, wouldn't it be a lot simpler just to have a photo ID?
No.
Delegate Sickles.
Madam Speaker, I think it is simpler to have a photo ID, and this bill does not prevent that. I mean, it encourages. We hope everybody has a photo ID, but there are times when it might not be there, and you can sign a sworn. This bill would allow you to sign a sworn affidavit under felony penalties if you lie. And it was something that was used time immemorial to. And this, there's been voter fraud in this country, but not people pretending to be someone else when they voted.
Madam Chair.
Delegate Wilt. Delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Simon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking to the bill.
Delegate Simon, you have the floor.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, members of the House. We can come up with these crazy hypothetical situations that almost never happen, actually never happen, right? We actually have statistics on in-person voter fraud, and it's almost zero, all right? But what we do have is people that show up on election day, and they've lost their driver's license. What we do have are senior citizens who no longer have a valid driver's license, and they can't vote. right? You guys are more concerned with these bizarre, strange hypotheticals that never happen than actually making sure that people that want to exercise their franchise are able to do it. You're making it more difficult for people to exercise their franchise. Young people who don't have driver's licenses, poor people who don't drive cars, people that live in nursing homes who've let their licenses expire, those are the people that we want voting. We want everyone to participate. So I mean, you can throw up a problem with any bill out there. You can come up with a crazy hypothetical that's got about a 0.0001 chance of happening and ignore the real problems that happen every election. People that walk into our voting places every day trying to vote and they can't. All we're trying to do is create one more fail-safe for those people that desperately want to cast their vote and want to do it. And so, Madam Chairman, I would hope that it'd be the pleasure of this body to engross this very important, very fine bill and pass it on to its third reading.
Madam Speaker,
The delegate from Albemarle, Delegate Bell.
would the gentleman from Fairfax, I thought he was on his feet,
Will
remain
the
on his feet
delegate-
for a question?
Will the delegate yield?
You're fine. Delegate Simon.
Delegate Simon.
Is-
Delegate Simon, will
I'd
you
ask the-
yield?
I'll yield.
I'd ask the
Delegate-
gentleman, when someone does come in and doesn't have the ID and presents the information, is their ballot preserved through a provisional ballot or does it go into the machine?
Delegate Simon.
Madam Speaker, I don't believe under this provision that it would require a provisional ballot. They sign the affidavit, their ballot will go through the machine.
Okay. So I'd ask the gentleman, I'm sorry, would the gentleman yield for a second
Will the
question?
delegate yield?
I'll yield.
Okay,
Delegate
so
yields.
you said crazy hypotheticals, things that didn't happen. So in our last election, a gentleman and his wife, this really happened, went into the voting, the central voting, ballot in Rockingham and Harrisonburg. And they were handed a ballot that had Delegate Wilt's names on it. They went back to vote, and as they're voting and filling it out, the husband said, Delegate Bell is our delegate. His wife, meanwhile, had filled in Delegate Wilt's. She was probably happy for that. Filled in his and put it in the machine. The husband brought this to the voting officials' attention, and they gave him my ballot, which he then filled out. And he said, well, what about my wife's ballot? She is now in the Delegate Wilt machine, counted as a delegate. She did vote for Delegate Wilt. And they said, sorry, it is in the machine. There is no remedy. Nothing can be fixed. The ballot is in the wrong pile. You cannot get a ballot for Delegate Bell because you voted. Delegate Wilt cannot have it taken out because we can't prove which of the ballots was his. Does the gentleman intend to leave us with those kind of issues where someone votes in the way the delegate had suggested? In other words, someone voted ahead of him saying that it was he. Instead of holding the ballot out as a provisional, why didn't we just leave it as a provisional ballot so this could be sorted out rather than go into the machine where it can't be fixed?
Delegate Simon.
Madam Speaker, this bill has to do with somebody, the hypothetical that I was referring to as being crazy and wild was somebody coming in and falsely claiming the identity of someone else and signing an affidavit to that effect rather than providing a photo ID. I don't think this bill really touches the issue of provisional ballots and how we handle those. This bill is about allowing one fail-safe for people that want to cast a ballot that don't have a current valid accepted form of photo ID to give them another way to do it. So that's the hypothetical I was referring to. As far as when we require provisional ballots, I mean, get your own bill for that, would be my suggestion to the gentleman.
Delegate Bell.
I'd like to speak to the bill.
Delegate Bell, you have the floor.
So, members of the House, what we have is not a one fail-safe, two fail-safe. It says no fail-safes, which would be, it doesn't have to be one of us. You arrive at the election precinct and say, gosh, I'm me, I'd like to vote. They say, sorry, somebody's already voted. Well, you go, gosh, I don't want that vote to count. I have no idea who it was. Surely that's a provisional ballot. They voted without an ID, and instead this bill would say, nope, it's in the machine. It cannot be remedied. By the way, we might not count your vote unless you can bring the proper ID at the later date, but that previous vote, too bad it's in. Hope you vote against the bill.